So good morning, everyone. Thank you for your attendance on the second in our series, the Beyond the Basics Advanced SugarCRM training. Just to recap, so last week we went through a couple of the, I suppose, sort of maybe understood or maybe underrepresented areas of SugarCRM in the newer style of sugar user management, the email to case creation feature, and the advanced features for adjusting the quotes module configuration. In continuing on with covering areas that don't always get a lot of coverage in the user training, today we'll be talking about user dashboard management. So specifically, we'll be taking a look at how to how to set up and manage dashboards for other users, and also taking a look at setting up an admin specific dashboard for accessing Sugar BPM functions that are otherwise a little bit difficult to access as an admin user. As always, these sessions are being recorded, and we'll provide you those recordings at the end of the session. Definitely feel free to access those when you want, and to share them with anyone else that you think maybe would benefit or would appreciate just watching the content as well too. And as mentioned as well too, just briefly, we'll also be providing some information on how to access Sugar University to also take advantage of the provided training materials from SugarCRM directly also. So to kick off today's session, the area that we'll be taking a look at today is dashboards. And firstly on my agenda, we just want to take a look at managing and sharing dashboards. Sorry, I've just got all my screens in my way there, so I'll just bring that out. So, so dashboards in SugarCRM, we feel are definitely an important part of the user experience. And the reason for that is that they really are the starting point for every user. And if they're not, they should be. You know, it's the first thing you see when you log into SugarCRM. And really, what its role is to be showing the user what is important for them in their role. So, you know, obviously, rather than having to navigate through the various modules, as much as that's not difficult, but having the key information that that user needs to perform the tasks that they need to do in the business presented to them immediately when they log in, just makes for a better user experience. Now, of course, as well too, sometimes their roles may cover a wide variety of areas, and that's why you can have multiple dashboards as well. And then the user can very quickly and easily switch from one dashboard to another, just to access the information that they need. Of course, as well, one of the, I suppose, so the difficulties that users and managers have with adoption of the system is that in the past, the dashboards module has been very specific to the user in that you had to set up your own dashboards to fully access that content. So what that used to mean was that managers either had to train the users on how to use the dashboards functionality in SugarCRM and set up their own dashboards, or go through the time-intensive process of logging into each user's account manually and setting up the dashboards that they need. In a recent update to SugarCRM, just within the last couple of versions, they made two changes. The first was to introduce a new feature called Dashboard Manager, which allowed you to be able to create a dashboard in your user and make it accessible to other users. And then they expanded on that functionality by then also adding the filter sharing as well too. And this was important because it then meant that you could fully control the creation and sharing of dashboards for users through the system, all from one point. They wouldn't have to have any, I suppose, wouldn't have to take part in the creation process, and they would be able to see data that's important to them. And just presented to them straight away, and the management of dashboards could be relegated to someone specific with the training and the knowledge to do that, and also that the creation of dashboards could be done much more quickly and easily, because you can actually create role-based dashboards or position-based dashboards rather than having to build them individually for each user. Now, What we wanted to go through today is just to talk about a few aspects on the creation of dashboards, and then cover the settings on where you'll find the dashboard manager and how that works, and how we'll cover that through. So I'm just going to share my screen again for us now. Sorry, which I believe everyone should be seeing at the moment. And in here in our demonstration environment, we're just looking at one of the main dashboards in the system. So this is just an example one here, and just showing that you can integrate a variety of different elements into a dashboard to sort of see what they have happening. A couple of sort of user specific ones that we have here are like these planned activities and active tasks that will show them their meetings, calls, and tasks that are assigned to that specific user, as well as what we find are very useful features in the system, which are saved report dashlets as well. So that is one particular type of dashboard that we have there. As we mentioned, though, users can have multiple dashboards in their system, just accessing them from the action menu on the dashboard's icon. And you can see that they can actually switch between the different ones that are available to them. That way they can have different information represented for them on those ones, and that can be list views, different charts as well, all can be presented there. And like we mentioned, the difficult side of this we've normally found is that the dashboard creation process can be a little bit involved, especially for new users, and it can be a sticking point for them to adopt. So that's why we find it's handy to have an admin manager that can log in and do that all from there. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm just going to switch to my admin manager. And the first thing you'll notice is that I've obviously got different dashboards for my admin manager for what they need to see, and can represent all the information that we want to see in a variety of different ways. And I can access my own dashboards as well too. And I've also got access to different dashboards that other users wouldn't have access to. So how do we go about, I suppose, creating these dashboards for other users, and then how do we make them accessible to those users? So just to pair with that, the one other point of, I suppose, topic that I just want to talk about this is that because the dashboards can now share filters, one of the important things about the filters is the fact that you can use a current user setting on things like reports to show data specific to those users. So if we take a look here in the reports section, for example, I'll just demonstrate this very quickly, because there are a number of example reports that you'll find in your systems as well too, that are set up like this. But I can take a look here, for example, the My Open Opportunities report. So if I just look at this one here and just look at the configuration of that one, just in the edit settings, you'll see here it's using the assigned to username is current user. So what this means is that we can build a report that is specific to the user viewing that report. So we no longer need to build the same report 5 times, 10 times, 20 times for the different users in the system. We can just identify it by the person that's actually accessing it. So just setting up reports that use that current user function rather than the actual user that you're targeting will make things a lot easier. And then that flows into the actual building of the dashboards. So to start with, the manager user can start creating dashboards either by hitting the create button in the top right-hand corner when they're on their own dashboard screen, or also accessing it from the action menu drop down here. Both will achieve the same end in that it'll start us on a new blank dashboard that we can start adding elements to. So, we'd obviously go through and set up a few areas and start adding these pieces in. And like I mentioned, we would use a couple of key ones that we think are important to use. So one of them is the saved reports chart dashlet. So this allows you to display reports that you have in the system onto a dashboard in the system. So I can come in here and I can just search for the ones that I want. So just looking for ones that we had there before. So I might just go with my my open cases here, maybe for this one here. Immediately set it up, and there's just a couple of key pieces that we want in there. So we might want to see totals on it. I'll just turn those on, and auto refresh, not strictly necessary, depending on the type of data you're presenting. Obviously, if it is data that does change quickly, you can have that refreshing on a much more regular basis. So say every 15 minutes or so. If it's less frequent, you might want to specify that out maybe every 2 hours. Otherwise, the dashboard will also refresh every time the user accesses it. So if they refresh their page, or if they navigate away from the dashboard and then back to it, that will prompt it to refresh new data. So if you're finding that it's maybe just something that's just like daily information that they need, you can even just leave that on none and just know that as they log in for each morning, it refreshes and shows them the current day's information. For my one here, I might just set it to every 2 hours because I want to make sure that they're, that it's getting at least prompted during the day while they're working on these ones. So I can add that in. And one thing you'll notice as well too is that because my user doesn't have any open cases, it automatically defaults to not showing any data. So you will notice that when you are setting these up for other users. And same things as well too with things like the active tasks. So active tasks is specifically set up to show just items that are assigned to you. And if you don't have them in here, you are going to see something that's a little bit different to what the users will see, but they will obviously get the content that's related to them. Probably the key thing here is just making sure that it is selecting only their items and not showing everyone's items, which is what we'd get if we were on no. You can also just relabel them just to make them a little bit more personal to the user and just make them recognize that it is content for them. And you can add in as many items as you want within a reasonable amount on these systems. So the dashboards now will handle up to about, I believe, about 30 rows in the dashboard with up to 5 columns in them as well too. So you can cram a lot of information into a single dashboard. But like we've mentioned before, we find that the better way to manage dashboards in the system is to break them out into discrete dashboards that focus on the key area that you want to represent to that user. That way the users can then just switch between the dashboards that they need to access rather than having to scroll through one incredibly large dashboard where they can't find, or they find it difficult to find everything that they want to access. You will find as well too that sometimes you will have dashboards that are more specific to your system if you have like custom plugins set up in your environment, maybe for like a box connector or similar. So you want to make sure that you look for those in here as well too. Anything that you have installed, it will be available immediately if it has a dashlet available in here that you can select and add in. We definitely encourage people to explore these areas and get a bit of a better understanding of, I suppose, the different options that are in here, because there's a lot of time that you could spend just talking about all the various features that are in here, of course. For me, I'm just going to put in a few more of the, I suppose, sort of like the starting point ones that we normally have, and that's specifically saved reports, the default targeted ones, and also, if I just pull in one more here, last one is list reports with filters, which we'll look at now. So just going to add in one more here. I'll leave that one as none. I want my totals. I do want to see my X and Y label axes on these ones. You'll be familiar with these from when you've set up these reports in the report builder, and it's just pulling that information through. And then obviously, if you need to adjust these, you can just rename those labels to make them make more sense to the user as it's coming through. And then for me, because I am wanting to show totals and I want them to show on the graph itself, I'm just going to position them in the bar so that I can see what they relate to in there. Most of everything else here, you can obviously explore these, but really these are the settings that will control what's displayed on the report and on that dashlet. And that's the key area that we're really interested in there. So that on there. And the last one I mentioned that we can bring in here, and this is where those saved filters come across from, is a list view dashlet. So sometimes you just need to show them a list of the records that are available to them. So the most simple one that you might want to set up is one just using the default filter, which is the records assigned to me, my records. what we have in here. And I don't need a refresh on that one. And this one will vary by user then as well too. So I, as the admin, don't have any assigned to me in there, so I won't see anything in there. But maybe if I add in a separate one there as well too, and we'll take a look at this from the user's perspective as well. I might want to grab my opportunities as well too, just so they can see what they've got in there at the moment. And and I just would apply a few ones in there. So realistically in this one here, I want my users just to see, my open opportunities. So I'm just going to filter them by their status. And I can either go is any of or is not any of, just depending on how many status you have. I've only got 2 here, so I can just say, show me that any that are in new or in progress. And for this one here, you can then go through and you can obviously select a specific user if you're setting up one of these for a specific user. Now, this is where the filters will differentiate a little bit, but where you can change them. So because you don't have the same current user feature that you have in reports, you would select the user that you want to target. But I'm going to say, well, this is a dashboard for Jim. So I just want to target it for there. And then I just want to make sure that he's just seeing the data that's relevant for him. So I'm just removing any of the, just the key fields that I don't need. And I can hit save there very easily. Now, the difference being here is that I'll obviously see the data for Jim because I have selected him. But having that filter set up and having it easily modified will come through in just a second. So I'm just going to give this title a name. So I'm just going to call this, because I'm setting one up for Jim at the moment, I'm just going to call this Jim's Home Dashboard. Now, if you were setting this up for maybe defaulting out to everyone as well too, you can also create a dashboard as a template as well too. And then I might name this the Home Dashboard template, because then I can use this one to then quickly create them for other users. So I'm just going to save that one there. So in this instance, I've now just created a quick dashboard that I want to deploy for Jim. So I want Jim to be able to access that now. So now I can come into my drop down and go into my Manage Dashboards section. And I'll see my new dashboard that I've created. So from this view here, I will see any dashboards that I have access to, either because they're assigned to me or because they're assigned to a team that I am a member of. From there, when I'm looking at them, of the ones I can see, if I want that dashboard to show up in my drop down, from the actions menu, I then just have to hit the favorite star next to it. So I can click on that one there, for example, and you'll notice it's now added that extra one into that dashboard there for me. So that's going to be the same thing for the user. So when you create them for the user, if they have multiple ones and there's just ones that they want to see, just need to make sure that you just tell them in their login, they just click the drop down, go to Manage Dashboards. They'll see the dashboards that are available for them, and then they can just favorite the ones that they want to see in their drop down. I want to make sure that this is accessible to Jim, and it won't be at the moment because it's assigned to me, and it's only in me as the admin's team as well too. So if this is a dashboard just for Jim, I can just change who it is assigned to, like that, and that will now make it available for Jim. If it's the primary dashboard that I want Jim to use, I can also just turn on the default dashboard as well too, and that will immediately make that the dashboard that Jim will see when he logs in. So I'll just save those changes there. So we've now got that change. So if I switch over to Jim now, so that will come in. So if I go into Manage Dashboards as Jim, we can see my Jim's home dashboard there. It is his default one. So if he just selects that one and then goes back to here, that'll then come up and you'll see it has actually got the tick on it as one of the defaults that it will return to. So he can go through and obviously undefault his other dashboards, but he can very quickly now access that dashboard that I've put in there. So some of the elements that I've added in, as we mentioned, don't have any content in them. So that's why Jim's not seeing them there. But you can see that I am seeing a different array of content based on what was set up for him. And by just adding that one in there for Jim, he can now see that in that drop down. So I'm just going to switch back to the admin user now. So the other side of the coin here is that, well, great, I've set up that dashboard for Jim. I now need to set that up for my next user, maybe Anthony or Jane. And I don't want to have to go through and create this entire dashboard again. And that's why that dashboard manager is really useful, because I can now just duplicate this dashboard. So I'm already selected on the one I want to modify, so I can just go duplicate. It has already on it all the elements already that we stuck on there previously. And it's already got a name. I'm just now going to edit this one. So this one is now going to become Jane's home dashboard. And the only pieces that I need to change in here are the ones that have the filters on them. So my saved reports that I've got here and my active tasks, these will already have the content in them already based on that current user setting that comes from reports and these special dashlets. And then for these ones where I've set them up, I can actually just edit by clicking the cog and going into edit on that report. And actually, yeah, that one I just want to leave because it is my accounts. So I can see that one's already set up the way I want. And then I can just come to this one here, which has my custom filter. So I can just expand that filter by clicking on it, and I just swapped the user out. I just realized, there we are, it's Jane. Cool. So I've made 2 very quick changes there, and that dashboard is now ready to go for Jane. And I would just do the same thing. So go into my manage dashboards, select Jane's home dashboard, assign it to Jane. And then just mark it as the default one. And then when Jane logs in, she'll then be able to hit her drop down on her system, go to manage dashboards, favorite that dashboard for her that's now been defaulted for her, and see that data for her. So in this way, you can see that you can very quickly and easily template and then deploy dashboards for multiple users with only just having to make a couple of minor changes between users. So much quicker and easier deployment for you, and a much simpler interaction piece for the users there as well. The only other piece is that's just worth noting here is that in the act of teaching users to access a managed dashboard system, they should also then come to realize that they can then switch quickly and easily between the dashboards that they work with just from this drop-down menu here. So they'll only see the ones available to them, and they can switch that out. If you find that yours starts to get a little bit cluttered, don't forget to go in yourself and just turn off the dashboards that you don't need to see, so that it'll collapse them out of there. And you might find you might just have to refresh that page just to get rid of everything. So that covers the elements there. I'll just bring up our other page. So that covers sort of the main area of dashboards there. Sorry, I did neglect to mention just before, I have got Darren on the system as well too, and he will be on the other ones here as well too. So if you do want to ask questions, feel free to do that in the chat, and he will respond to those ones. We're now just going to look at the second element that I wanted to talk about as far as dashboards go in the system, and that is creating a workflow management dashboard. So the workflow management dashboard is very much a one specific to the administrator role, and it is obviously going to be specific also to those that are on at least Sugar Enterprise, Serve, or Sell. Sugar Management. The Sugar Management dashboard for workflow is for the Sugar BPM module in these systems, and this is their advanced workflow system that they've introduced into SugarCRM. Really, really useful tool, and we do try and encourage a lot of people to at least get onto the versions that have that, because it allows you to automate a lot of the tasks that you would normally have to I suppose sort of do by hand yourself, and it's really, really sort of useful in that respect for speeding things up and getting things I suppose, sort of happening in ways that your users don't have to manage. Sugar BPM is important in that respect as well too, for simplifying your user experience as well too, because you can take that pressure off users by automating out steps that they would do regularly or automatically in the same way each time, by just automating them for them and just leaving them to focus on just the pieces of the tasks that they need to manage directly. I just want to take a look at how we would set up a dashboard to access that area easily, and we'll just take a quick look at that now. So I'm just going to share my screen again. So this very much is an area that is specific to the administrator, and this is why we would create a dashboard, because by default, if you want to access the various elements of the Sugar BPM, you would have to either come into the admin panel and scroll down to Sugar BPM here to access some of the process management and the log views. But this will just show you workflows that have already run, but not creating new ones there. If you wanted to actually access the ability to build them or build templates, you would then have to actually add the modules into the navigation bar at the top of the screen, and then click to each module as you need to from there. Ultimately, this is not ideal because it does present it there in the navigation bar for the other users, and they will not have access to that module. So it's just adding unnecessary clutter to that dashboard, and really only the admin user needs to access it. So that just comes down just to creating a very simple dashboard, so that you can sort of pull all that data into the one place and access it very easily, while keeping your navigation bar free of any of that admin specific clutter up there as well too. And that's simply done just by coming back to your home screen, creating a new dashboard, and just adding 4 elements. There's 4 different pieces of the Sugar BPM elements that are available here. And you can come in here and you can just find them all down here. So we've got processes. So we'll just select each one in turn and just add it to these ones here. Process business rules. Process email templates. And process definitions. So these are the 4 elements of Sugar BPM that you would need to access in your role. So what we've got here are basically processes. So these are trigger points that you would access as a user. And this is probably the one Sugar BPM dashlet that you might add to another user's dashboards, is that you can set up stop points in workflows that ask a user to take specific action, and that's done in the form of a process. So you can obviously have it assign a task for maybe like review or approval to another user. They would see that appear in here and just click on their process to follow it through. The other elements that we've got here then are process email templates, and that is exactly what it sounds like, where you just create templates for the emails that you would send out using the Sugar BPM workflow system. Process business rules, and these allow you to group if this then that rules for maybe like drop downs with a lot of options or a lot of users, so that you can simplify your workflows. And these get created separately and then added in to process definitions. And then the last thing, in the major area that you want, is the process definitions here, which shows you the definitions that you have and gives you the ability to create new ones. And I always just call this one the Sugar BPM dashboard. So very quickly and easily set up there for me now, and then I can access all the elements that I need. So I can see the existing ones that are there, and then I can, I can enable them, edit them, and go through, or I can even create new process definitions from here and start working through and managing that system. So ultimately, just a much more brief sort of topic on that second one there, but just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that when you are using those tools, rather than having to navigate through the various areas, you can pull all of that information back into the one place in a single dashboard, and then just make it much easier for whoever is managing that side of your Sugar system to be able to quickly and easily access what they need to. And that will conclude with the topics that we want to cover today. So Thank you very much, everyone, for participating in the second session of our sugar training. This video recording will be made available to you very soon, and we'll send that one out. We'll also be, like I mentioned, including a piece on the Sugar University training modules and how to access those. And we will have another session next week, which we will be taking a look more at how to modify the layouts in the system, both in Sugar and in Sugar Mobile, to present a simplified user experience as well too, so that Sugar is easy for your users to get into and start using. So again, I thank you very much for your time on today's session, and look forward to speaking with you again next week. Thank you very much.